Hello class, and welcome to today's algebra lesson, which is about radical equations. By the end of today's lesson, you will be able to solve equations that involve radicals. So we're going to start with just basic equations. When you are solving these, you are following your steps of SAD-MEP. So subtraction and addition, division and multiplication, then exponents, then parentheses. So the square root part falls under exponents. So you're going to do anything outside of the square root first, and then once the square root is isolated, then you can go ahead and solve the square root part. So in this case, I've got 1.34 being multiplied by by the square root of h. So I'm going to divide both sides by 1.34. And when I do that, I'm going to get the square root of h is equal to 9 divided by 1.34 gives us a long decimal. So I'm going to go ahead and round to 2 decimal places, which is 6.72. Then the square root is isolated. Only the square root is here with nothing on the outside. So now to get rid of square root, I'm going to square both sides. And once I do that, that is going to eliminate square and square root, cancel each other out. So when I square the other side, 6.72 squared is going to give me an answer of h is equal to 45.11. Again, that is rounding to 2 decimal places. When you need to round, you always want to go to the 100th place. Go ahead and try this one on your own. So when I start this one, the square root is already isolated, so I'm going to square both sides to start, and that's going to give me 2n is equal to 4,225. Dividing both sides by 2 to get rid of that and isolate the variable, I get 2,112.5. Sometimes there's going to be more than one step involved. So going through, the first thing I need to eliminate is anything outside the square root. So I'm going to go ahead and add 2 to both sides to eliminate subtracting 2. So I have the square root of c minus 3 is equal to 11. Now that my square root is isolated, I need to undo the square root by squaring both sides. So that's going to give me c minus 3 is equal to 121. And then I'm going to finish solving by adding 3 to both sides, which is going to give me a final answer of c is equal to 124. Go ahead and try this one on your own. We're going to start by subtracting 7 on both sides, isolating the square root, then squaring both sides, and then subtracting 5 gives us an answer of a is equal to 20. Sometimes when we are solving these, there's going to be more than one thing on the equal side. So nothing outside of the square root. So my first step is to square this. Square and square root eliminates. So I've got c minus 1. Now on the other side, this whole thing has to be squared, which means that I'm going to come over to my box and I'm going to have the same thing twice. So c minus 3 times c minus 3, because remember, squaring means multiplying by itself. So that gives me c squared, negative 3c, negative 3c, and a positive 9. So when I combine that, it's going to give me c squared minus 6c plus 9. Now I've got variables on both sides. I'm going to want to bring everything over to the side with c squared. So in order to do that, I need to subtract a c to eliminate the c. So that's going to line up with negative 6c. And then I also need to get rid of a negative 1. So I'm going to do that by adding 1. That's going to line up with our positive 9. So now I have a problem that says 0 is equal to c squared minus 7c plus 10. Then there are multiple different ways you can solve this. You could use the quadratic formula. You could use completing the square. Personally, I think factoring is the easiest for this one. So I've got 1 and 10, 2 and 5. So to get to a negative 7, I need a negative 2 and a negative 5. So I'm going to have 0 is equal to c minus 2, and then my other factor being c minus 5. Again, that would come from putting this into the box. You would have c squared, negative 2c, negative 5c, and positive 10, pulling out your GCF, then filling in the remaining factors. Our last step then is going to be to actually solve the equation. So I've got c minus 2 is equal to 0, and c minus 5 is equal to 0. In the first scenario, I solve by adding 2. So I find out that c is equal to 2. And in the second scenario, I solve by adding 5. So I get an answer of c is equal to 5. So we end up with 2 answers that satisfy this particular equation. Go ahead and try this one on your own. So we get rid of square root by squaring. When I do that, again, you can toss that into the box, x and a positive 3, x and a positive 3, giving you x squared, 3x, another 3x, and 9, which is how we get x squared plus 6x plus 9. Subtracting both other pieces over, I end up with x squared plus 5x plus 4. I need the things that multiply to 4, so that's 1 and 4 and 2 and 2. In order to add up to 5, I've got a positive 4 and a positive 1. Solving both of those equal to 0 gives me a negative 4 and a negative 1 for my answers. If you have questions about this or anything else from the lesson, please feel free to reach out and let me know.